Today we are talking about the full moon in Pisces on September 20th and how it's your signal to let go and let the universe handle it. Hi everyone, I'm Donna, your practical astrologer, and today we are talking about the full moon in Pisces on September 20th. We're going to do an overview and then we will go sign by sign. Now, Pisces energy is very interesting in the sense that it is energy that doesn't have a boundary between where you end and where the universe begins. This is why Pisces in general is so intuitive. It is able to reach out and be in that Akashic field or in the field of just the collective consciousness or even the collective unconsciousness that's out there. So when we do a full moon in Pisces, we are actually in touch with the universe, and that's a time for you to take issues that you have, problems you're trying to solve, decisions that you're trying to make, and actually bundle those up in a very kind of not organized, but in a mindful and deliberate manner and hand those to the universe. This is not something that you want to just do, tossing it out there, because if you do that, then when the answers come, you may not recognize that those are answers. But through something like a meditation or lighting a candle or placing a feng shui cure or things like that, you can at the same time say, universe or God or angels or whoever you're in communication with, you say, I need some help on this problem. I need a clear solution. I need a clear message. I need a sign on which way to go. And so as you do this, you are letting the universe know that you want some help. And that's the universe's signal to bring you opportunities. Now, the universe and you are co-creating together. And this means that in your spiritual form, in your higher form, you have decided that you wanted to learn a certain set of lessons and that you wanted to have this earthbound experience. And so the universe is going to find you solutions, and those will come helping you along in your lessons. So as we always say, it's a gift with a lesson. But that shouldn't sound scary, because these are lessons that you wanted to learn. And if you move forward into them, if you look at these and say, this might be a storm that you're facing, but at the end of the storm, you're going to be a better sailor, then you want to, you're going to feel like you can lean into this storm, like you can say, yeah, bring it on, because I want to challenge myself. I want to learn and grow. And because you're watching videos like this and you're on this channel, I know you do want to grow, that you want to achieve this point of feeling like, you understand your purpose, that you understand why you're here, and that you really see the fruits of that growth. So in a Pisces moon, everything kind of blends together, and that is because there's no boundaries. And so that's the difference. Like if you're cooking, you might have all your ingredients separated for a moment. Maybe the water, the flour, and the yeast are all in different bowls. But once you combine them, then the reaction starts to happen. And then things start to grow. And so this is a time where when there are no boundaries, it is like the energies are being mixed together. Now, that also means that energies that you might not be looking for are also coming in, because this is a very psychic sign. And so that is to remind you that this is a time to be mindful of what you're consuming in the way of media, what you're thinking about, because while you may not choose the thoughts that come up, you can choose whether you're going to dwell on them or not. And so, if thoughts are coming up, especially during a Pisces full moon, they may not be your thoughts. You might be picking up thoughts from the neighbors, from the media, from, even something that's not real, like something fictional, like coming out of a movie and being very worried that character wasn't going to make it. And so there is this blending happening, and that's what you need to be aware of. If you already have Pisces energy in your chart, you may be better at separating these out because you've had a lot of practice. Or if you perhaps have a lot of Virgo energy, which is the opposite sign to Pisces, you have a bit more ability to have a demarcation between your thoughts and someone else's. But for lots of people, it can just feel like kind of a muddy time where everything's mixed together. Now, it's also a magical time because you can pull in different energies and knowledge and answers and things, whatever you need. So it is how, if you get stressed about something and like you're in a pool of water with dirt on the bottom, if you kick up a lot of the mud, you can't see anything. But if you get calm and quiet for a moment, like in meditation or journaling or prayer, the water, all the mud settles and the water becomes clear. And then the answer is there. So while you're doing this energy over the next 2 weeks, you really want to look at doing meditation, journaling, or some other way of becoming quiet and allowing yourself to kind of sort through the thoughts and feelings that you're having. This also gives the universe some space to give you answers. Now, if you don't know your chart, there is a link below where I give you information on getting a copy of your chart. Also, I do readings, and so if you want to know more about your chart and more about yourself, then just let me know and we can sit down and talk together. When we look at this full moon in particular, we see that it's very late in the sign. It's at 28 degrees. And so this is the point where we are releasing something to the universe. Because in mere moments after this, the moon is void of course. And void of course means that the moon will not make any more aspects until it changes signs. This means that you cannot do anything more, that everything you could possibly do, all the information you need, you've collected, all of the things that you've reached out to people, you've done, everything that is on your side is done, and now you have to just wait for the answer or wait for the results of what you've done. Fortunately, because this is very late in this sign, you won't have to wait too long, and so I do believe that answers will be coming for many of you over this next 2 weeks. So you just want to tell the universe very specifically what it is that you're looking for, and that is to ask questions that are helpful. So it is not helpful to, do affirmations that are negative, like, oh, I don't understand, or I can't do this, or I'm overwhelmed. So because those things just, then your body and your spirit have to kind of align with that negative energy. But instead, to say to yourself, if I did know a solution, what would it be? Or, if I did need help on this situation, how could I find this person, or how could I find this organization to help me? So it is about asking very specific questions, which is using the axis, the sun in Virgo, part of this to say, show me a spotlight on the specific things that I need to do next. Now, some of the highlights of this chart and energy that we're going to be feeling for the next 2 weeks is first that we have Mercury making a lovely trine to Jupiter and a difficult square to Pluto. And this is a very interesting configuration because this is very much about your ability to influence others with what you say, but also the ability for other people to influence you. So you do have to be quite careful about what you're consuming in the way of media, who you're listening to, because you can be convinced of something that may not be to your benefit. On the other hand, if you are in sales, or if you are, looking to gain more clients, or you are, asking somebody if they want to go out with you, this is a configuration that can give you, the words and the argument to have people agree with you, to have them sway to your side. So, if somebody out there is very practiced and has, alternative, or not alternative, but ulterior negative reasons for trying to get you to do something, they have a lot of power during this time. And so you do have to watch out for the slick salesperson. On the other hand, if you have struggled to really get clear on, your argument about, why you want to move or change jobs, or why you should get a raise or things like that, you can be quite persuasive at this time. Additionally, in this chart, we have Mars, which is the planet of action, making a trine to the north node and a sextile to the south node. Now, both of those aspects are good, but we like the fact that Mars is making the better aspect to the north node, which means that this 2 weeks, when you're taking an action, you are more likely to do things for your life path, things that move you forward, than you are to do things that are the same as you've done before or set you back. So this is a time where, while you are still connecting with other people and getting help and, all the things that we said already, when you do decide to take an action, the action is more likely going to be beneficial to your life path. But we do have one specific challenge this time, and that is Venus is making an inconjunct to Chiron. And so when you're not taking an action, the inclination will be to kind of be a lump, kind of be just, because you have put things out to the universe, you are waiting for an answer. And so in that, then it's time to go do something else, not to just sit and say, I'm just going to wait here by the door until opportunity knocks. And so there's an old saying that I think it was Ralph Bloom in his book on runes said this: it is when fishermen can't fish, they mend their nets. And this is something that I've really lived by. If something feels blocked, I go work on something else. I don't want to just sit by that door waiting for it to open. And so the Venus inconjunct Chiron gives an opportunity to do more healing, to work on yourself, to actually, get rid of blocks and, some of the gunk from the past, but it's an inconjunct. And so it's not going to be as fun. It's not going to be as pleasant. It's going to take a little bit of work. And so the Venus in Scorpio just wants to sit, and the Chiron in Aries wants to get on with the healing. And then one more thing is that Mercury is going to go retrograde on the 26th. It'll be retrograde from the 26th of September to October 18. And this means that you have a few more days to get everything ready for the retrograde period. And that is, if you were thinking about, going to DMV or upgrading your computer, you might just want to wait until after the 18th or try and squeeze it in before Mercury goes retrograde. It's not terrible to do things on Mercury retrograde. Well, most things. You just want to stick to things that you would be okay with repeating. You don't want to focus on things you never want to do again, because Mercury retrograde can cause things to happen twice, either at the same retrograde time or at a subsequent retrograde. And speaking of this, I am collaborating with another astrologer, Tammy Magaro, and we are putting out books on the Mercury retrograde and how to use Mercury as a force for communication. And those are coming out really soon, so I'll be making an announcement about that very, very soon. Okay, Aries natives, you guys are doing this full moon in your 12th house. That's your hidden house of hidden talents, issues, addictions, but also where you are the most psychic. Now, the interesting thing about this placement is the moon is rising in your chart, and that actually means that it is very, very noticeable. When the moon is on the horizon, it is magnified by the atmosphere, and so the moon can seem gigantic. And so how this can manifest in your life is that emotions feel bigger than usual, and that can be your own emotions or the people that you're dealing with. Everything's kind of at a heightened point. Now, it also does increase your psychic ability, but it also can increase the desire to go back to addictive behaviors you've had in the past. So when we look at what the universe is suggesting, we would go to the sun to see what problems it's highlighting for you. And the sun in the 6th house would indicate things like that you need to change your habits, or that you need to look at your processes of how you do things and see if some shift can be happening there, or perhaps you need to look at, how your house is laid out. Is it conducive to your goals? And this is a lot of where feng shui comes in. Feng shui is about setting up your environment so it supports what you want, it supports your goals, rather than working against your goals. And an example of that is if you tell me that you want to work on a side business when you get home from work, or you want to work on your novel, but you walk into your house and you see a giant TV with a really comfy sofa, you're more likely then to end up sitting there and watching TV. But if you covered the TV and, maybe took the cushions off the sofa, at that point, it's so much work to do that. It's easier to go sit in your chair at your desk and work on your business. So yeah, that's a very, maybe you might consider that an unconventional way of working with feng shui. This is how I've worked with feng shui for decades now. Yes, there is a branch of feng shui that just wants to make this zen, perfect, beautiful location. But the real use of feng shui is how you are reacting to your environment and using your environment to help support you. So as you define your problem, which might be, your scheduling, or, how good you are at following through, that's what you bundle up to the universe to say, all right, now I'm going to release this problem. And that could be, universe, please bring me a scheduling system that really works, or please bring me, an example of how I could get my day done, or how I could let go of this habit, or things like that. So this is, working this full moon energy. It's first divining the problem in very real terms, especially for you because it's in your 6th house. And then looking at what you can release to the universe, basically what you can delegate to the universe, and letting it go. When we look at your relationships, what we see is Mars is in that house, and that is very, very nice because that can bring you new love opportunities, people to talk with, people to consider. So, and also it brings a lot of action with existing relationships. So all of that's very good. Now the timing is a bit off because there's no aspect going on between Mars and Venus. And so it's possible that you're meeting the person, but you're not really getting together over the 2-week period. You might have to wait, or maybe you get together once, but the second date gets postponed, or things like that. It's especially true because Mercury is going to be retrograde. And so that can mean that the person disappears that you've just met, or that you met somebody, but then somebody from your past comes back and that kind of pushes aside the new person that you met. When we look at your home life, you're pulling energy from that moon that I said was gigantic now, and it is, in a place that's quite sensitive for you. So there could be some arguments at home, or somebody is upset about something, or you're upset about something. And oftentimes this can get blown out of proportion when you're doing the moon in this position. So it is something where it's best for you just to walk away from the situation or walk away from the argument. I'm not suggesting that you just leave home, but that you just take a little breather, count to 10, do a meditation, go for a bike ride, do something different so that you're not in full-on engaging and creating issues. Not that you would create issues. So just so that you can, diffuse the situation and allow it to calm down on its own. Now, when it comes to your money, you're pulling money from Venus in your house of resources. So that's really good. I think that what this is saying is that there is quite a few promises of money or other resources coming to you over this 2 weeks. Now, the money itself may not manifest during the 2 week period, but we'll talk about that in a second. What this is more saying is that you might get a letter of credit, or you might get credit at a low interest rate. You might get, the approval that you're going to get a new client, or somebody says they're going to sign the contract, and it does feel like things are going to follow through, but it's just outside this period. So this is saying to me that you're moving in the right direction, but you're not actually manifesting the money at this time. Now, additionally, because it's Venus, and Venus does rule your house of money, sometimes you can be overly optimistic. And so because Venus is making that inconjunct to Chiron, like we talked about in the opening, it is really good at this time to look at any money issues or money blocks that you have and do what you can to clear those. And that might be through meditation, journaling, or actually seeing someone to talk through what the money issues are. When it comes to your traditional investments or money that is made through a business or a family business, as I already mentioned before, Venus is not making an aspect to Pluto, nor is it making an aspect to Mars. And so it is more that the money is coming outside of this 2 week period. What I think is that as this chart moves forward, that there's going to be this unexpected delay in the payment of something. So it's really good to have a contingency plan, or, if you are waiting for money so you can pay somebody else, just to make sure that the person you're going to pay is aware there could be delays even before you've heard that there are going to be delays. So, but things I think, is certainly line up in the future. So because these aspects for you move fairly quickly. But right now, this is a time where you're getting the promises of money, but it's not quite here yet. Now, things are quite different when we look at money derived from career, because Venus is making an opposition to Uranus, plus we have Saturn and Jupiter in your house of money derived from career. And so getting a raise, getting a bonus, getting some extra perks from your job, or getting some stock from your company, or, getting a better commission schedule, all of these things are quite possible. You can also get a new job and negotiate salary that way. So when it comes to very active income sources, or especially working for someone else, that's very strong, much stronger than the passive income sources that we just talked about. When it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that are unusual, like buying a lot of gold or precious metals, or buying leverage investments around precious metals, that would definitely be a riskier investment. Venus is making a semi-square to the sun, and this is a minor aspect, but it still is an aspect. So we like seeing it. It does mean that money can come to you, but it does take a lot of extra work, and that means that you have to really know what you're signing. You're a little bit more threading the needle. Like if you're in a plane and you're going between the two mountains, you kind of have to turn the plane a little bit. So it's going to take some work. And if you are really ready for this risky investment, if you know what you're talking about, that's no trouble for you. Like if you were a fighter jet pilot, you're going to do that. You can thread the needle. But if this is something new, you're going to want to do more work before you move forward. Okay, Taurus native, you guys are doing this full moon in your house of friendships, technology, and the future in general. So also community. I should have said community before. So so this is the part where if there are issues around this, that's where you are letting go. Now we are going to look at the opposite, what the sun is lighting up. And the sun is in your house of creativity and children and fertility. It's basically, all of those things that create your legacy. Additionally, it's also about taking risks and about doing something that brings you joy. So with this, it's suggesting that your questions to the universe are, how can I make the same money in half the time? I know, I always talk about money. It's my favorite thing. But also, how can I have a better relationship with my friends? It is, how can I meet more close friends? How can I have fun with my friends? How can I let my children go live their lives and I will create my own legacy? These are the types of questions that you can meditate about or journal about. So now, if you specifically have issues around friendships, around updating technology, which will, Mercury's going to go retrograde, so you probably want to wait and, for definitely until late October before doing that anyway. But more importantly, like if you are so focused on your kids and, worried about them all the time, but in a sense, not paying attention to the example you could be. So if you went out and did some of the things you were suggesting for your kids, then they would see how to do it. But instead, sitting by the door, hoping that they are going to, open the right door, that they're going to go through the door, that's where you need to say, nope, universe, I'm going to give this to you, and you're going to take the driver's seat, and you're going to steer this bus. Now, as I mentioned before, Mercury is going to go retrograde, so if you are thinking about upgrading your technology, you only have a couple of days, and let's say you order it, and then it comes, but now Mercury's retrograde, still be cautious about trying to set things up during Mercury retrograde. It can really play some havoc with technology, so if it's possible, you might just want to wait until late October to do some of this. If this is something that you do on a regular basis, like upgrading your software or doing updates with software, or you're renewing your license for something software-wise, that's okay, because then in a subsequent retrograde, you'll do it again. But if this is something you don't do very often, it's great to do it outside the retrograde period. Now, when it comes to relationships, Venus is in your 7th house, which we like. That's great. You can meet somebody new and all of that. However, Venus is not making an aspect to Pluto. It's not making an aspect to Mars. And so therefore, the energy's a little off. And I think that is probably because Mercury is going retrograde. And that is that you might meet somebody new and then not hear from them for a couple of weeks. Or that you meet somebody new and then a person from your past comes back in and now you have two to choose from and you don't know what to do. And so, or you get really, really busy and you don't have time to call them. So it's okay for meeting somebody, but don't have a lot of expectations of getting together or really having things gel until we get to better aspects in the future. When it comes to your home life, you're pulling energy from that sun in your house of kids, fertility, creativity, pleasure, and risky investments. And so, if the family is coming together to do some sort of risky real estate venture, be really careful because the Mercury is going to go retrograde and, some of the other aspects that we were talking about can be difficult. Additionally, all the things that I said about maybe holding too tight to what the kids are going to do rather than looking at what you should be doing and being the example for the kids. That comes up very strongly. If you are going back to do some sort of fertility treatments or something like that, again, the retrograde energy can be good for something like that if you don't mind. Like if they say, okay, we're going to do, like this every 3 months for a while, well, that fits right into the retrograde. But if you're doing something you don't want to repeat, then try to do it outside the retrograde period. When it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Mercury in your house of routines, work, habits, and health. And what that says is that, that you have a job, you might be getting more hours, that if you don't have a job, you can certainly get one, that money comes when you organize things, and so that could be selling off stuff that you don't need. It could mean just, getting your finances into a spreadsheet or using maybe a cash envelope system where it's really tangible and you can see it. It also does say, though, that your habits around money in general will make a difference. So if your habit is to, put your credit cards in the freezer and not carry cash with you, you're going to spend less. Maybe you unsubscribe to catalogs or, the notification pushes that you get from different companies. So how you can make your daily environment a little easier for you to save money or make money, that's what's going to help right now. When it comes to your investments, and these are more traditional investments like stocks and bonds or money from a business or a family business, Mercury is making a trine to Jupiter this time, and so you have really good energy. This is a time where you can really find great investments, cash in on investments, gain more territory, raise your prices, and have people happy to pay them, expand a business, start a business. So you'll have really good energy. Now, of course, Mercury's retrograde, you're going to say to me. So starting a business during Mercury retrograde can be a little bit of a problem. Not so huge. If you were starting like a division of the business, that's fine. If you're starting something that you hope to franchise in the future, it could work also. But in general, you want to start a business, outside of the retrograde period. Now, if you have the opportunity, consult with an astrologer about choosing a good day to start a business. Starting a business is very important, and so you can choose a good day for that. And we know this works because a lot of financial astrologers out there will use the chart of a company, the day that the company was founded or the day that it was listed on the stock exchange, as their guide to whether the company is going to do well or not. So if you want your company to do well, you want to start on a good day. When it comes to money derived from career, the house itself is maybe not so great with the Neptune moon there, but Mercury is making an inconjunct to that Neptune. And then some of you are saying, inconjunct. But it is an aspect, which means that while it's a bumpy road to get that bonus or get that raise, the money still flows into your account. So that is because of this retrograde energy. Maybe you're going back to your boss for a second time or even a third time and saying, hey, you promised me a raise. When are we going to do this? Or, I want more hours and you're asking again. Or, now you have an opportunity to gain more sales and get more commission. So something is happening where the money is coming in, but it does take some work on your part. This work is not so pleasant. It's outside of your comfort zone, but when you do it, you make more money. When it comes to risky investments, you are doing that Mercury, which is part of that configuration that we were talking about in the intro. And that is the trine to Jupiter, where everything looks lovely and wonderful, and that square to Pluto, where you can be talked into something that is not so helpful. So if you're the person in this risky investment that is doing the talking, if you are, signing people up, finding investors and things like that, then you can give a very persuasive argument for why people should invest with you. But if you're the person who is kind of the not as knowledgeable party, the one who doesn't have the leverage, then this is difficult for you because you can get talked into something that maybe is, a bigger bite than you can chew, or maybe the person's not being completely forthright with you to tell you what's really going on. This Pluto is in your house of contracts, so be super, super careful if, again, you are not the party that has the power. If somebody else has the power in this situation, be cautious. Okay, Gemini natives, you guys are doing this full moon in your house of career and reputation. And this is about letting a career issue back into the hands of the universe, not back, but into the hands of the universe, put it in the hands of the universe. Third time's a charm. And so that whatever it is, that you can allow the bigger universe to help you out with it. And maybe that is that you have difficulties with a supervisor, or you're not sure if you should stay in this particular career. Maybe you do want to move out. I think that this is a time where, maybe you are thinking, you don't want to stay longer in this job, but you see Mercury retrograde approaching and you know that's not a good time to change jobs. So how do you make it through the next few weeks? And so we need to look at the other side and what the sun is shining a light on. And it is in your area of home and family. It is also the house of endings. And so this is perhaps that you are giving yourself a firm date when you're going to be done with a job, and then in the meantime doing your resume, looking for another job, etc. So, and if of course you want to start a new job, it's ideal to start it outside the retrograde period. By the way, I think I mentioned in the opening, but myself and another astrologer are collaborating on a book that talks about what you can and should not do on a retrograde to have the most success and prosperity. And so I'll be announcing that pretty soon. The energy here is also about maybe going to your family and saying, what do you guys think? What do you think of my ideas? Maybe collaborating with them, maybe pulling together family members to start a business. This is also, though, about looking at how you are at home and how, like if you get to work every day and you're super tired because you didn't get rest at home, what can you change at home to make it easier for you to feel rested and things like that. So the Virgo side of this full moon is like looking at the practical stuff and that stuff at home. And then the bigger question of what you're going to do with your life and your life purpose or your career, that's the thing you're putting in the hands of the universe. I also want to point out for Gemini or Gemini rising that Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, and this does mean that you do have a little bit more of a handle on things when Mercury is retrograde. You are a little less susceptible to the issues that can come with it because you know Mercury very well. And so that means that a lot of the rules that we give you about what you can and cannot do, you can fudge a little bit because you are more able to handle the ups and downs of that energy. It also does say that opportunities can come in during the retrograde, and sometimes people find that confusing, but if you are Gemini or Gemini rising, you can get more opportunities during the retrograde. They'll come in pairs, or 4 opportunities will come in, or 16 opportunities will come in, like multiples will come in, and so you'll have more options. When it comes to your relationships, you are doing really good energy because not only is the North Node, South Node right on that axis, but also Mercury is making a trine to Jupiter. And so this is one of the best times for you to find a new love, reconnect with someone you've dated in the past, or just strengthen your existing relationships. So you have opportunities for more fun in relationships, more communication, but also to really connect on a deep and spiritual level. And so this is something you want to pursue. So when it comes to home life, you're pulling energy from that Mercury. It's like I'm a broken record, right? You're pulling energy from that Mercury. It's making the trine to Jupiter in your area of contracts and agreements, but it's making that square to Pluto in that house of resources. So that means that while you might be doing applications, actual funding for maybe getting a new house or a home equity loan or something like that could be delayed. It also says to be careful about signing something that you're not really clear about. It's also a possibility that you could, get yourself into some sort of real estate investment at this time that may not be the best for you, might not be the strongest. And so you have that extra angelic or spiritual protection with the trine to Jupiter. But just watch out for that square to Pluto. If somebody seems like they're a little fast talking, or more importantly, like if the universe steps in to stop you from getting to the appointment on time, or, like you're ready to sign, but nobody has a pen, take those as signs from the universe to slow down and just, check things before you move forward. When it comes to your money, you're pulling money from the moon that is elevated in your chart, so that's fantastic. It means that it's easier to find you, to get you money now. This is in your house of career, so there are career opportunities, as we were talking about before. There's also opportunities to move up in your existing company, so that's all great. If you're going to do some marketing for your business, this is a great time to do that as well, especially because of that whole configuration of the Mercury, Jupiter, Pluto, which would mean that you have a more persuasive marketing campaign, that the campaign is more effective, that your marketing is reaching the right people, etc. When it comes to money from traditional investments or from your own business or a family business, while the energy is good for money for you, that money is not coming from these particular sources over this 2-week period because there is no aspect going on between the moon and Saturn. And so that does mean that profits could be delayed, or that you can see them, like, you get the new customer, but they're on a time payment plan, so you're not getting the money right away. It also could be that your investments are doing well enough that you don't want to cash them in right now. And so, that they're just kind of gently moving up, or maybe they're in a holding pattern, and so you're not taking profits at this time. When it comes to money derived from career, the moon is making an opposition to Mars. Now, it's out of sign, and out of sign means it's not going to be quite as obvious, but it is a great opportunity for you to gain more money when you're working for somebody else. So that is that maybe the way you're asking is different, or perhaps you are willing to work a very different shift, or maybe take on a different type of project. Maybe you're suggesting a new position for yourself. And so there's quite a few different ways that you could gain more money, but again, not as obvious. So it also may come in the form of perks, which would be extra time off, or maybe stocks or things like that. So I do expect you to make more money this time, but it's coming from a place you didn't expect. Now, when it comes to risky investments, you do have a good house with Mars and Mercury there, so you're chomping at the bit to get these risky investments happening. And by risky investments, I'm meaning things that are highly leveraged or unusual, stuff that you'd have to explain to your grandparents. So Mars and Mercury are there, that's great. The moon is making a sesquiquadrate to Venus, which is an aspect. We like to see an aspect, but that's a challenging aspect. So that is something like where we're doing something where it's more of a long shot. So if you're going to be doing a risky investment and it is a long shot, you want to invest the least amount of time or energy or money into it that you can get away with. And so that is just stick your toe in the water, but don't dive in. Look at maybe getting 1 share instead of 1,000 shares, or look at not necessarily buying a franchise, but maybe working side by side with a franchise owner to learn more about the situation. So I see the energy, I see this desire that you have to move forward, especially with the Mars there, and you can do something quite extraordinary, but it is a long shot. And so when we add it all up, you have to be pretty confident about what you're doing to get this all to work. Okay, Cancer natives, you guys are doing this full moon in your house of education, legal matters, and spirituality. And so this is kind of the ultimate time for you to, let go and let God take over. And so the need here, though, is to not be too general, but to be quite specific. And with the sun lighting up your house of communication, it is to actually make a list and say, please, I would like help with these issues. Also realizing that the lessons, because this is your house of education that this moon is in, that getting the lesson and understanding the lesson, accepting the lesson is crucial to having the benefits, the rewards, and the treasure chest open for you. So this is, if your question was about relationships, and you might say, why is this not working with, this person? And then seeing, to yourself, okay, how is it me? How is it them? What can I do to make the changes here? And then being quiet and listening for that response. And that response can come from lots of different places. When you put something out to the universe could use a therapist to tell you, a friend to tell you, a random stranger might say something, or you might click on a video and that person just happens to say something and and then everything just comes together. So this is about being specific and not necessarily saying, why don't relationships ever work? That's not a good Virgo type question for the sun in Virgo, but it's why don't I get along with my colleague, Susie or June or Bill or whoever? And and asking specifically about a specific person brings you the answers. When it comes to relationships, Moon's not making an aspect to Saturn this time, and so the timing is a little bit off. There's also that configuration that I was talking about earlier with the Mercury that is making the trine to Jupiter and the square to Pluto, and that Pluto is in your house of relationships, and so I'm almost nervous that you could get talked into a relationship that is not beneficial to you, and that is if you're talking to somebody online and you've never met this person and they seem so wonderful. Do be very cautious because this aspect says you could get talked into something. Now, this is also if you're trying to persuade someone to go out with you, yeah, there's some possibilities, but because the timing's off, because there's no aspect between the moon and Saturn, it's kind of a waste because you could get them to say yes, and then they say, yeah, but I'm going to be gone. I'm going to Iceland for 2 weeks or something like that, and then you don't get to see them anyway. So if you have other things to do in your life right now, other things to work on, put relationships on the back burner for now. And, you can focus on friendships. You can focus on, some of the existing relationships, family relationships, certainly. But trying to meet somebody new right now, the timing's a little off. And it could be that you're talked into something that you don't really want to do. When it comes to home and family, you have a good house with Mars and Mercury there, so we see a ton of activity and all of that. It's pulling energy from that Venus that we talked about at the beginning that's making the inconjunct to Chiron. Now, this is very specific for you that you are really putting a lot of time and energy into your children or creative projects, but it is time also to focus on your own healing, your own growth. And so that is to, say, to trust that your kids are going to be okay, that you've already, you're raising them, yes, but, they have a lot of your wisdom already. And it's time maybe to step back and allow them to do something while then you go and do something that could inspire them, that could show them, a better way to live. So the home and family, tons of activity, but there is a focus for you to go do personal healing over taking care of everybody else. When it comes to your money, you're pulling money from that sun in your house of communication, and it is in this spot of being so very specific. And so this is becoming very aware of how much money you have, how much money you're spending, really looking at things like down to the penny. Also looking at debt the same way. If you haven't opened up the bills, it's time to not only open them, but see what your interest rates are, see if you can get people to lower interest rates. Look for other ways for you to make money on the side. So very, very specific energy for that. And when you do that, then you see that money comes in from many different sources. So that's your key. When you say, okay, I'm really going to watch my spending, and then suddenly you find not only that you're spending a lot less, but that you're finding other sources of income. When it comes to traditional investments like stocks and bonds, or passive income sources like rental income, royalties, residuals, or money from your own business, the sun is making a sesquiquadrate to Uranus. Now that is an aspect that when it works, it's extraordinary, like a big win, but it doesn't work every time. It does take a little bit of effort. It is like, you know, standing way back from the target, shooting the arrow and trying to hit the bullseye. So you might have to shoot 100 arrows. You might have to shoot 1,000 arrows. But as you do, you practice and you get better. So this could be, you know, looking at your stocks and seeing what are the winners and maybe getting more of those types of securities, what really works for you. Also looking at your business and saying, all right, you know, what are the things in my business that make me the most money? What can I let go of that's not making me money? Is it time to raise your prices? Is it time to hone what you offer? So, you know, you're not like, I don't know, Cheesecake Factory and you're offering everything under the sun, maybe getting it down to just a small menu of services that you're offering. When it comes to money from your career, the sun is making a semi-square to Venus. So this is the second of these unusual, more minor aspects. So this says you can gain more money in your career if you're outside of your comfort zone. That's kind of a drag. That could mean that you are working a shift you don't like, or you're working a lot more hours than you like, or that you're working with people that you don't really get along with, or you're doing a project you don't like. So you have to weigh that with the amount of, you know, just peace of mind of not doing that and maybe not having that money. So it also could be that if you've gotten a new job or you're in negotiating for a new job, that you're just hesitant about asking for more money. And that's something where you might need to practice, get a little coaching, go through videos on how to do that. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, they're usually highly leveraged and unusual, and you're doing some good energy. Now, you have Venus going through there, which means you have a really strong desire to get things moving. Plus, the sun is making a trine to Pluto now, and so things are actually lining up for you. So I do expect that this could be the time that you're really considering going into this investment. Now, of course, Mercury is retrograde, so if this is an investment you've done before, then it's full steam ahead. However, if this is something brand new, be cautious about signing during the retrograde. That is that you might only have a few days to get things signed, because then we'll be in the retrograde energy. If you are going to negotiate this, you could also extend negotiations outside of this 2-week period and outside of the retrograde. So you have a couple of choices there. Of course, I do want you to be careful. You still have Neptune and now the moon in your house of contracts, and that can kind of obscure some of the different provisos or addendums or any of that other legal stuff, so that some things may not be totally clear. But this is probably some of the best energy you've had for moving forward on a risky investment, or more importantly, actually getting some profits into your account from a risky investment. So there you have it. Okay, Leo natives, you guys are doing this full moon in your area of resources from others, and this is balanced out with the sun going through your house of money and self-worth. So what this is about looking at what you're trying to attract in the way of help or funding, or anything from financial help to emotional support, and letting that go, letting the universe bring you the person or people or organization. So if you have a particular person that you are saying, wow, this person's not being supportive, and it could be somebody in your life, a family member, your partner, your boss, and you're saying, I'm not getting support from this person and really frustrated by that. This is to allow the universe to take the problem from you, and so that you can receive that help and support, maybe not from that particular person, but from somewhere else. Now, when we look at what you're supposed to specifically be working on, that sun is going through that house of sense of deserving, in other words, self-esteem. So it's really amazing how much we receive is directly tied to how we think we deserve. And the idea of deserving is not necessarily connected to if the person is a good person, if they have done things that are worthy. That's, again, those sort of rules or limitations are done on an individual basis. This is more about if you can cultivate this idea that as a soul here on this planet, you are deserving of opportunities, money, support. If you can start to know that in your heart, you will receive more. Now, if you are tying it to something, if you are tying it to, well, if I'm a good person, or if I, have a degree, or if I work really hard, or any of those things that you tie it to, then that becomes the rule. And so sometimes people do well to uncouple those sort of things and say, I can still make a lot of money without a degree, etc. I think that if you feel that there are things that you have done in your past and you feel that those hold you back from deserving, then this aspect here says to take a look at those and see if you can make amends or release them, or in other ways get yourself free of that burden. This also does say, with the sun going through the house of money, that if you will look at your money in a very detailed way, if you will look at what you're spending, what you're taking in, and all that, you then have more opportunities for the universe to bring you opportunities. So how many times can I say opportunities in one sentence? So what that means is that you might say, I really want to start a business, but I need funds for that. And by doing the accounting, you find that you do have some of the funds you need. And so you only need some matching funds, or that you have more time than you thought you had. And so maybe you don't need as much funding. So, or it's just a matter as you're putting your attention on the money itself, whatever you put your attention on expands. And so by paying attention to your money, you are expanding your money. When it comes to your relationships, you are doing some very interesting energy. Saturn is there, as well as Jupiter, which can bring you lots of different opportunities to meet new people or reestablish with an existing relationship, well, a past relationship. And that's partly because Mercury is going to go retrograde, and that can bring somebody from your past back into your life. But also the sun is making a sesquiquadrate to Uranus. A sesquiquadrate's not an aspect we talk about very often, though lately I've talked about it more because we're seeing it pop up more. And so this is that if you take a risk or take a chance on something, you can get some really extraordinary results. But sometimes the risk is so far out of your comfort zone that you don't even see it as something you can do. And so this is going outside of the conventional things, like just online dating or just asking friends to fix you up, and really looking for love in your life very seriously. Maybe engaging a matchmaker, or maybe engaging just one friend who is going to tell you what's wrong with your profile, change your pictures out, and help you, choose who to go out with. When it comes to home and family, you have Venus in the house, which says that some happy things are happening, so that's fantastic. You're pulling energy from Pluto in your house of routines and daily habits, as well as the Mars in the house of communication. Now, this house also rules neighbors, and so there can be more connection with neighbors, that you are finding people that can be helpful. Maybe you're getting new neighbors. Maybe people are renovating their houses around you. Parking issues can clear up. Issues with, noisy neighbors or barking dogs. All of these things can get better over this time. Now remember that this Mars is that Mars that we talked about in the opening, where it's doing that trine, that lovely trine to the north node of your life path. So if you look around your neighborhood, you might say to yourself, well, what can I do to make this neighborhood better? maybe there's an empty lot and maybe you all can get together and do a community garden, or maybe you gather people together for some sort of outdoor picnic, like block off the street and everybody celebrates, or things like that. But this is also that Mars trining the North Node in your house of the future that says maybe you're thinking that this is not the long-term place for you to stay, and so you're thinking about the future, not maybe next week, not maybe even next year, but in the long run. When it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Mercury, which is really poised to make you some extra money. Mercury is making the trine to Jupiter in your house of relationships, which does say the more people you meet, the more money you're going to make. It's also making a square to Pluto in your house of work, which means that you have an opportunity to transform how you do things at work so that you can maybe spend less time there actually working, or just be more efficient, which then is valued by your supervisor and then leads to more money. So all of the things are lining up here as quite positive. Now, because you're doing that square to Pluto, it's in your 6th house. Be careful of slick salespeople who are trying to sell you like work at home things, or that are promising you a job, but you have to pay them at first. So most of those type of situations aren't very beneficial, especially these days in unlimited information. There's so many ways to learn things for almost no money. So if you're needing to gain a skill set, oftentimes you can do it without buying something that's super expensive. So be careful about that. Otherwise, the more people you meet, the more money you make. When it comes to money from traditional investments like stocks and bonds, or from your own business or a family business, Mercury is doing it in conjunct to Neptune, and if you know some astrology, you know that's not the best aspect, but we don't look for best or worse, we look for an aspect, because even if that aspect is bumpy, it's still a direct line from the outside world into your bank account. So the in conjunct just means that you're doing something outside of your comfort zone, and that might be that you are looking at your traditional investments and maybe applying some of the tools that they have these days, like a trailing cell stop, or maybe they give some sort of software to help you determine how the performance or things like that. Maybe you have a stock and it's doing something unusual like a reverse split. Something like that that's outside of your comfort zone, that's going to need a little bit more research, but from that you can gain more money. Same thing with your business. Perhaps in your business you're great at working behind the scenes, but not so great on camera. Or maybe you love to be in front of people, but your books have cobwebs on them because it's been so long since you looked at them. So it is looking at the thing that you find more difficult and seeing if you can do it yourself, or if you need to hire someone to help you with it. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, we are focused on that Mercury making the trine to Jupiter and that square to Pluto. So it does say that you can go to your boss and you can probably negotiate a pretty sizable raise. The square to Pluto in your house of work says that then the boss will turn around and give you some extra responsibility. Now, that can work in your favor, especially if you go to the boss and say, these are the projects I want to do. This is, I want to do something that's more high profile, or I want to work more behind the scenes and I can get this done for you and make you look good. So, you can work this in an angle that is beneficial to you. But if you are just walking in and saying, hey boss, I want more, be careful, because there is going to be some sort of string attached. And finally, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, Mercury is making a trine to Jupiter this time. And so this is probably some of the best energy you've had in a while. This means that you can find the person to help you through, you can find the mentor, you can collaborate with the influencer, you can find somebody who could be instrumental in getting your risky investment off the ground. So as always, I do want you to be cautious because it's a risky investment and you have Chiron still going through your house of contracts. So be careful when you are signing something. But if you're already in the investment, you have an opportunity to gain more profits than usual. Okay, Virgo natives, you guys are doing this full moon in your house of relationships, and that says that when it comes to specific connections that you have with someone, especially if you are struggling, to get along or to really make a connection, that's the thing that you're leaving in the hands of the universe. Now, if you are specifically looking for a love relationship, that sun in your own sign of Virgo is saying, be specific. And so the be specific can be, that can be a little problematic if you're naming names. So let's say you like a particular person and you say, this is the only person in the universe that is going to work for me. Then the universe will do its best to bring the two of you together. However, it could take a really, really, really long time. And so it's sometimes more beneficial to say to the universe, I really like these particular qualities about this person, and so I want something like that or better. And that way the universe can go out there and find somebody for you that is better than that person that you were so fixated on. And I know we're talking about things about the heart, and I'm talking in a very sort of pragmatic way about it, but I do feel that sometimes if we get so emotionally caught up in, one person where it's just not working, what we're doing is just beating our head against the wall, and it's time to think of a different way to look at the relationship. And it's perfect with the sun in Virgo to look at it in a pragmatic way. So this is to ask yourself, if this situation was just you, if you were the problem, what can you change specifically? Or if it is that you want to connect with somebody else, then what could you do, or I should say, tell the universe that you want to meet new people as somebody who has these qualities that you like, but is available or interested or all of the above. Now, of course, Virgo and Virgo rising, the sign is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is the one that's going to go retrograde. And I just wanted to point out that you probably do better during Mercury retrograde times because you're more familiar with Mercury in general. So as all the rest of us kind of, fluster around and walk into walls and things like that, you can do better because you know this energy. And so oftentimes for you, the Mercury retrograde energy will just double things. Now, because you're so practical and pragmatic, or at least that's what the Virgo is supposed to be teaching you, you can get a little frustrated when Mercury is slowing down to go retrograde. So over the next 6 days or so, you might feel, like you really kind of, just like your fists are balled and you're just like raising your fist to the universe and saying, hey, let's get things moving. But they can't move because Mercury is slowing down. So, and that's part of this letting go and just allowing the timing to happen at the universe's little clock or timetable or calendar, and not trying to keep to a schedule. Now, when it comes to relationships, we already talked a lot about it, but I'm just going to add that Mercury is making an inconjunct to Neptune in your house of relationships. And so that does mean that there is an opportunity with somebody who maybe you feel the situation's outside of your comfort zone, or maybe some other adjustments have to happen. Maybe this person isn't entirely free of their relationship, and so you have to be patient, or maybe the same for you, or that there's some other thing that is making it challenging, like they live on the other side of the country, or they're moving to Guam or something like that. So this is an aspect, and we always like to see an aspect, and it is your full moon energy, so that's wonderful, but there's still an inconjunct energy happening, which means that there has to be adjustments on both sides. When it comes to your home life, you are pulling energy from that Jupiter, which is making the trine to Mercury, which is wonderful. That means that more money is coming into the household. There's more of a sense of peace and happiness going in. But that Jupiter is making a semi-sextile to that Pluto, and that means that there might be one or more of your kids who are just slightly irritating right now. They themselves might be, or something they're doing, which is more likely. Something they're doing is just maybe has you a little bit worried or a little bit stressed. And so using this energy right now of letting go, letting God take care of it, that's something specifically to say to the universe, please help my child work through this issue so that you can step back and watch them, learn more lessons, gather more experience, etc. When it comes to your money, you're doing some very interesting energy. And that is that you're pulling money from the Venus in your house of communications. And at the same time, you have Mars and Mercury in Libra, which is ruled by that Venus. And so you have all of these that are not necessarily talking to each other, but at least they all speak the same language. So they all speak Norwegian, but they're a little too far from each other to be heard. So it's like the first step is there. And that is that maybe you're getting a contract together, but it's not signed yet, and probably waiting until after Mercury is direct. Or somebody says they're going to buy something, but they haven't quite done the transaction yet. So there's opportunities to get money from multiple different sources, but there are going to be some delays. Now, when it comes to money from your traditional investments or your own business or a family business, Venus is not making an aspect to Mars. But as I was saying before, that you have this interesting situation going on in that Venus is in Scorpio, which is co-ruled by Mars, and Mars is in Libra, which is ruled by Venus. So we have a situation where, again, they all speak the same language, but they're not close enough to have the conversation. So I think you can see the profits coming. You have a little inkling that things are starting to work. Like the grass is starting to grow, but there's certainly no leaves to eat. There's definitely no trees to pick fruit from. It's just moving a little more slowly than you wanted. And, as we talked about in the beginning, that quote of when fishermen can't fish, they mend their nets. This is a time where you're going to do some net mending. When it comes to money derived from career, you are doing Venus sesquiquadrate that moon, and that is an aspect. It's an unusual aspect. It's a minor aspect, so it's a little harder to access the energy. And that might be that you just don't like asking for a raise, that you would prefer that they notice the good work you're doing and just give it to you. But this is not really what happens in this day and age. And so you might have to learn how to ask for a raise. You might have to work on the timing of when you ask for a raise. You might have to consult with an astrologer to find the best day and the best time to meet with your boss to do it. But if you do, the results are extraordinary. So this is, like running to do a high jump, and 1 in 100 times you sail over that bar, so much higher you break records. But most of the time you're just smacking into that bar and not breaking the record. So this is, if you want this, you have to try, and it's a bit of a long shot, but if you make it, it's extraordinary. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things like a franchise or a highly leveraged investment or some sort of derivative that very few people know about, Venus is making a square to Saturn. And so there's a lot of energy around doing this. And so Venus is in your house of agreements, Saturn is in your house of work. So you might be very close, or perhaps you recently signed on the dotted line and now you're moving forward. So there is some opportunities to make some profits, to actually gain some money doing this. Of course, I do want you to be very careful because it's a risky investment, of course, try to put in the minimum amount of time, effort, or money to make this happen. Don't just throw caution to the wind. Squares can be challenging, but we like to see an aspect to see if the money is coming into your account, and it looks like it is. Okay, Libra natives, you guys are doing this full moon in your house of routines, processes, and work. And what this means is there's a lot of focus on maybe following your intuition when it comes to what you should eat, what time you should get up, and also work situations. Like if you start to feel like you are drawn to work in a certain department or a certain company, it would be a good time to apply to these, to get that job. If you are feeling like, today I should not go into the office, I should work at home, then trust your intuition. This also says to add spiritual processes to your daily life, and that would be like looking at meditation or journaling or even hypnosis to help you focus your energies and connect more spiritually. Now, where you are doing that Virgo energy, which is the side of this that says be really specific, it's rising in your chart. So that means that if it looks like the sun is rising, and what could be so more noticeable than the sun rising? And so this is this idea of where do you want a new beginning? Where do you want to start fresh? So what do you want to do that's new? And I'm saying all that during a time when this is going to be Mercury retrograde. So this would be kind of like you thought about it before and now you're going to really do it. Or this is something you did before and now you want a fresh start at it. But also, this sun here makes you more noticeable to the universe in general. So asking for help right now can give you much more help than you were expecting. So asking for a little bit of assistance from the universe could bring you a cornucopia of opportunities. When it comes to your relationships, the moon is just under the horizon, and so you may not know exactly how you feel about a particular relationship or how they feel about you, and so that one could impede relationships. On the other hand, because the sun is rising in your chart, you are super noticeable at this time. Now, Venus is not making an aspect with Mars. There is some kind of more remote connection, so I feel like you could meet someone you have a lot in common with, you could connect with on some level, but getting together and really starting this relationship doesn't seem to be happening at the moment. It's really tough to meet somebody new on Mercury retrograde. It can just fizzle, and so, but it is really good for meeting somebody that you've known before, and that is that you might reconnect with a lover from your past and see if you both have grown in a similar direction so that you can come together. When we look at home and family, you're pulling energy from that Saturn in your house of kids. I know I keep saying that to you guys because Saturn moves really slowly. Saturn is going to take 2.5 years total to get out of Aquarius, and so it's only at 7 degrees now, so we still have a ways to go. Additionally, Saturn's not making any extra aspects this time, and so what we see is you just moving along, helping kids, focused on them and their success. Additionally, if you're doing creative projects at home, they're just in process. So it's a lot of the same as usual for you when it comes to home and family. When it comes to your money, you have a couple of different energies going on. First of all, Venus is in that house, so there is a strong desire to spend money. Additionally, you are pulling money from both that Pluto in your 4th house, which we've talked about many times, and that is opportunities with real estate or working at home or some other money source based on your home in general or family. But also Mars, which is now in Libra, in your own sign. So that is when you put yourself forward, when you put your name on something, when you say, I'm the one in charge of this, then you make money. So you except for that problem with the spending, because that Venus in Scorpio really wants to gain something that helps you feel safe, that helps you feel comfortable, that might go up in value, or accumulating in general, which Scorpio energy can do. The Mars in Libra is very good for gaining more income or more revenue streams coming in. When it comes to income sources that are passive, like royalties, residuals, or traditional investments like stocks and bonds, or your own business or family business, Venus is not making an aspect to Pluto, and it's not making technically an aspect to Mars. And I say technically because there's some rulership connection, but overall, this feels like there's a promise of money. You see the growth, you see an opportunity in the future to take profits, but the profits aren't exactly here yet. It's the same thing that you see a more clients coming in, but perhaps you haven't done the work yet. Maybe they haven't quite signed yet. So, but you're feeling the energy is getting better, but it's not actually manifesting yet into money in your accounts. When it comes to money from your career, you're doing some very good energy because the sun is making a trine to Pluto. And so this is one of the best times you've had in a while to ask for a raise, to ask for more hours, to ask for a better commission schedule or a better shift, or get a new job and negotiate a higher salary through that. So you have some really good energy here for gaining more money through working for somebody else. Now, I should point out here too, if you do something that is your own business, but you do it so regularly in the sense that, like you have a landscaping business, but you wear one of the landscaping outfits and you're working side by side with your team, that can sometimes show up as money derived from your career, in that, yes, you own the business, but you're also kind of an employee in the business. And so sometimes we will see more money come because of that. If you have questions about that, I do readings on finding the hidden money in your chart. I also have a video course on this, so you can check out the links in the description. Okay, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, and money to get them going, Pluto is not making an aspect to Uranus, but Mars is making an aspect to Saturn. I had to look, it's a trine. And so these are the co-rulers making a very happy aspect together. And so this is an opportunity for you to gain some profits in this area. Of course, I do want you to be quite careful about this. Specifically because it's a risky investment. However, the Mars is making that lovely trine to the North Node as well. And so in a sense, you're doing a grand trine. So this, again, I gotta say, this is one of the best periods of time for you to gain profits from a risky investment than you've had in a long time. Now, of course, Mercury is retrograde on top of that. Well, not quite yet, but it will be for most of this 2-week period. And so that can complicate things. So be extra careful when you're doing paperwork to make sure that the fax goes through, that the signature is where it's supposed to be. Don't rush this process. But if you are taking careful steps, you could really profit this time. Okay, Scorpio natives, you guys are doing this full moon, lighting up your house of children, fertility, and creativity. Also, romance and pleasure, and risky investments. I have to get all of those things in there. And so these are the types of things that you want to let go and allow the universe and God to take over. So this is that, if it's about your children, maybe just trusting that you've already taught them what they need to know and they are going to make their decisions. And some of those decisions will carry them through lots of lessons and some of them will work out just great. And it's the same with your creative projects. If you are holding on to a creative project and trying to perfect it over and over again, consider releasing it into the world and allowing whatever happens to it to happen. And then when it comes to love relationships, we'll talk about relationships in a second, but the romance part of that, sometimes with this aspect, it is such a desire for the romance side of it. And this can be skewed by all these ideas that we get from the media and we get from movies and books and things like that. And, if that's the case, is maybe doing the opposite side of this aspect and go create some romance in your life. There's some wonderful videos of people who decorate their houses in this romantic way, or they go through the steps of the day that brings the romance, and then that can attract the love relationship that aligns with that energy. And so while we talk about that and the sun in Virgo on that opposite side, that is to look at the specific things that you want in the future, to tell the universe what you're looking for. I know that sometimes this is very hard to do because we don't know what kind of future there's going to be as we see how quickly the world can change and, just day to day, how things seem so unpredictable. But that doesn't necessarily need to stop you from saying, but this is what I want in the future. So you might say that you want the little cabin in the woods, but you look at the real estate prices and you say, they're so outrageous, I'm never going to be able to do it. But that's not that judgment part is not what this Virgo needs to be. The Virgo says, yeah, I want the cabin, I want the land, I want the little creek by it, etc. And then you put that out to the universe and release it and let the universe take care of that while you then go do other things. And the other things in this case is the sun in the 11th house, which is connect with many people. So there was an author years ago named Barbara Scheer who wrote a book called Wishcraft. And I read this book many, many years ago. And this is the idea of kind of crowdsourcing your dreams. And so that is that you have a dream, you get very specific about it, and then you tell everybody you know about this dream, and somebody will pop up and say, oh yeah, I can help you with that. So, and she had a subsequent book, a follow-up book, and I can't remember what that was called. I'll try and find that and put that in the description. But I remember an example from this book or a lecture she did, and so someone in her audience stood up and said, you know, I really want to work with monkeys, but I have no training and no experience. I really want to do this. And the person sitting behind her stood up and said, I run the local zoo. We need people to come in and hold the baby monkeys. It's not a paid position, but we will take people without experience. And then poof, you know, like you get goosebumps from something like this. And that's the type of energy that you're doing in this full moon and over the next 2 weeks. So when it comes to relationships, we are seeing this energy of the Venus, which is the ruler of your relationships in your own sign of Scorpio. So it feels like it's close, but there's no aspect going on right now between Venus and Pluto, except for the fact that Venus is in Scorpio, which Pluto rules. So we've got this more remote connection, but it's only one direction. So what I see is more that if you are stepping up and saying, okay, universe, I really do want someone. This is what I have to offer a relationship. This is the type of relationship that I would like. Then just being patient, allowing the Mercury retrograde energy to clear, you can attract relationship energy. You might also say for your existing love relationship, this is the type of relationship that I really want. You know, that we don't fight, that we have, you know, dinner together, that we, you know, do a hobby together or things like that, and allow the universe to take care of some of the details. When it comes to home and family, of course, Saturn is in that house as well as Jupiter. So we have kind of a mix of sweet and sour energy going on. You know, there's some responsibilities, there is some joy. It's pulling energy from that Uranus in the 7th house. So that means that other people might be coming in and mixing things up. You know, maybe your kids are bringing home friends from school, or that you are meeting friends who are now traveling and things like that. So we have some shifts in the energy going on, but you've been doing this basic energy for some time. So a lot of this, especially with Mercury retrograde, might just be a continuation of what's been happening. Now, when it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Jupiter, which is doing both the trine to that Mercury, which is going retrograde, which could mean an additional source of income, and also a semi-sextile to Pluto in your house of communication. So what this all adds up to is there is an opportunity to make more money than usual, but it is predicated on you asking or requesting it, or maybe filling out a piece of paper, and there's some sort of hesitation about it. It's a semi-sextile. That's that aspect that I talk about that's kind of like a rock in your shoe, you know, and then you stop your hike and you take off your shoe and you kind of bang it on something, but the rock doesn't come out because the rock's really in your sock. You know, it's that sort of thing. Like it's a slight irritation, and you have to just sit down and go through the paperwork or figure out what you're going to say to the person to get this financial gain. Now, when it comes to investments, especially of a traditional nature or other passive income, like royalties or affiliate marketing or money from your own business, Mercury is making a trine to Jupiter. So this not only says that money is coming and it's entering your account, but also that it is a source of money that you've had before. When that Mercury goes retrograde in a few days, it could bring you either double the money or customer returns, or, something that, like a stock that was dormant, suddenly takes off. So there's really some good money opportunities this time. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, there is that similar energy. However, because the Mercury is in your hidden house, it is necessary for you to go to your boss and specifically say, I do want that raise. And when you do, good things happen because Mercury is making a trine to Jupiter. This may be the second time you've asked. This might be the fourth time you've asked, the 16th time you've asked. So, and that's where maybe that little level of discomfort is coming in because of the Pluto in your house of communication. But I think that it's really worth it, if you would go to your boss and say, I want to raise. If the boss pushes back and says, no, you can't have this, then say why. And if they say the company's just not going to do that, then it's your sign to look for something else. Or they might say, yes, you can have the raise, but just not now. And so that the money comes in, at some point. But all that aside, this does look good if you can get over the hurdle of just asking. Now, when it comes to risky investments, that is the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going. Not only is Neptune in this house, but the moon is also. And so there is that energy of just let go and let the universe take care of things. Jupiter's making a semi-sextile to that Neptune, which is an aspect. We like to see that. That means money can come into your account. But this is not something that you can steer. This is something where you have to let go and see what happens. So, of course, you want to be cautious because the semi-sextile goes both directions. Jupiter's making the semi-sextile to Neptune and the semi-sextile to Pluto. And so do be cautious. It is a risky investment. So if you can put in less to get this going, that would be a good idea. But you do show some true potential for profits this time. Okay, Sagittarius natives, you guys are doing this full moon in your house of home, family, and real estate. And so this is also your house of endings. And so the things that are happening here say to let go and let the universe handle issues around family, issues about, like if you are waiting to hear back on getting a new place, if you are thinking about, going into real estate and you're not sure what to do about that, or if you're thinking about ending something, ending a relationship or letting go of a hobby or something like that. Now, the other side of this is that sun in Virgo, very elevated in your chart, very, very noticeable. And so that this means that this isn't a situation where you would let go of something like a move but not pack. The sun in Virgo says you would pack as though you're moving, and then you get the answer about the place. Or this is, if you're thinking about doing a real estate deal, it is that you say, all right, this deal is in process. It's either going to work or not. Let me go work on another deal. And so that you are doing that, when fishermen can't fish, they mend their nets. So that's the energy that's going on. It says, go do the practical things that you can do, but make sure you let go of the things that are outside of your control. When it comes to relationships, you're doing some really great energy this time. You have the North Node, South Node kind of straddling that ascendant-descendant line, which is fantastic. That does mean that you can bring somebody in from a past life, a soul connection, somebody who you just feel very comfortable with, who is very familiar. Additionally, Mercury is making a trine to Jupiter, which means that you come together and your schedules work and you can see each other. It's because Mercury is going to go retrograde, it may be somebody from your past, but you notice that, that they cleaned up their life, that they are really doing things in a different way. And so you're willing to give them another chance. So you have really good energy around relationships for this period. When it comes to home and family, we talked a little bit about that already. The moon is in this house, and so you might feel more emotional about home and family things at this time. So you do want to make sure that you don't blow things out of proportion. Other people may do the blowing out of proportion for you, especially because the moon is conjunct Neptune. They may accuse you of things that didn't happen, or they may lie outright. And it's better to just step back and say, why are they feeling so defensive? Why are they feeling so out of balance that they have to scream or lie or do something like that, rather than getting defensive yourself or taking things personally. So now, all of that sounded really dire. This also could be a very nice aspect with the energy of Neptune, giving this more kind of romantic, happy, idyllic sort of connection with the family, where you guys are, like doing a picnic in your backyard and everything's fun, or redecorating the house and making it beautiful, or things like that. When it comes to your money, you're pulling money from the Saturn in your house of communication. And of course, Saturn's going to be there for quite a while yet, because Saturn doesn't move very fast. And this gives you plenty of time to work on your communication skills. Now, because Mercury is going retrograde, the idea is to work on things that you've worked on in the past. And so that might be going to somebody that you've talked to before and asking if they want to buy your products, or if a job opening is available, or things like that. So this is honing the communication, but doing a repeat of some sort of communication you've done before, and that's what brings you money. Now, when it comes to money from investments, and these would be traditional investments like stocks and bonds, or money from your own business, the Saturn is not making an aspect with the moon this time, and so profits are a little hard to get. This means that maybe you're making a little bit of money here and there, but it's not more than usual. So the money I see is still flowing in, but your attention is elsewhere, and that is maybe on home and family, maybe on relationships in general. And so it's one of those things that you can't pay attention to everything all the time. And so sometimes you just have to let something run on its own, and which is the perfect energy for the Pisces moon. So, keep this kind of little bit of an eye on it, but not necessarily such a close eye, because this is not the focus this time. Now, on the other hand, you have some extraordinary energy when it comes to money derived from career. The sun is soon to be in that house, Mars is in that house, Mercury is in that house, and Venus is making a square to Saturn. So all of this comes together to say you can get a raise, you can get a new job and negotiate for a better salary, you can get, better hours or a better commission schedule. You just have to ask. And that's where the Saturn in your house of communication comes in. How do you hone how you've asked? How can you make it different than how you've asked before, so that you can convince the person that you're worthy of the money, or that you're overdue for the money, or that you need the job but you have the salary requirement, etc. So this is some of the best energy I've seen for you all year. So you do want to capitalize on this, despite the fact that Mercury's retrograde, despite the fact that you may have had to ask in the past. This could be your time to actually get that extra money. And when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that are highly leveraged, or things that are like derivatives of things, so they're not so easy to explain. They're usually something that is so unusual that you'd have to explain it to your friends and family. Saturn is making a trine to Mars, and so there is some real opportunity to gain in this area. Now, because Mercury is going retrograde, I would expect this to be something you're already in, and that you're taking some profits. I feel like this is less about starting something new in this area, because starting something new during Mercury retrograde can really bring problems. So I would say this is something that you already have going, and you get some sort of inspiration, and you find a way to gain more profits and to channel those profits into your accounts. So from that standpoint, this looks very good. Okay, Capricorn natives, you guys are doing this full moon in your house of communication, thinking process, neighbors, and siblings. And so when it comes to issues around neighbors and siblings, this is a time where you need to state to the universe what you really, really want the outcome to be and then let it go, because there is no more that you can do to affect the matter. That's because the moon is just about to be void of course. Now, when it comes to the communication and starting with how you communicate with yourself, it is time to start really looking at the words that you're using to describe your life. And that is, are you using inflammatory language to describe how things are going? Are you saying things are a disaster, that you were devastated, that things are, abysmal, or any of these other words? And I understand that you might be using these words because throughout your life, you never got any attention. That people were always paying attention to something else, and so you weren't being recognized for what you were going through. However, and unfortunately, at this time, it's your subconscious that is catastrophizing, I think that's the right word, these concepts, when in actuality, there's a lot that you can handle, and you are going to feel more energy and more ability to handle it if you state it in terms that are less dire. And so the sun in Virgo, in your house of education, is doing this energy of being very specific, almost being quite literal about what's happening. If something is not a catastrophe, if it is an inconvenience, it's so much easier to handle. And by renaming something, you can actually, one, feel like you can take it on, but two, you will understand that it's not as difficult. It's just something that you have to do. I mean, the whole idea of that a name can affect us. What it was, Shakespeare said, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. And while that may be true, as we rename things, we, though, have an emotional response to them. So this has been used in marketing a great deal, unfortunately to most people's detriment. And that was the idea that if we rename cake a muffin, then people will eat it for breakfast. Or if we rename a piece of candy as a fruit roll-up, people will give it to their kids. And yet they didn't change the ingredients of these things. There's still plenty of sugar and other ingredients in these that are not beneficial. So that is the type of thing that you're doing if you're using inflammatory language to describe what's going on with you. And when you change your language, you change your attitudes of how you can handle it. When it comes to relationships, we don't see an aspect between Saturn and Moon, and that means that relationships are not a high priority this time. And so it's best to just kind of focus on other things and allow relationships to unfold at the speed they are doing. Now, with Mercury retrograde, that speed could be really, really slow. And so that might mean that, you met somebody, but they're not calling. Just don't try and put it out of your mind, work on other things. So, because you don't really want to try to pursue these things during that retrograde energy anyway, you have other things to be working on. So right now, just allow, give it to the universe. That's what we're doing this time. Just give it to the universe and let the universe work its magic. When it comes to home and family, you're pulling energy from that Mars. It's making that lovely trine to the North Node. So there is something that is in alignment with your life path happening at home. That Mars is really elevated, so this might be something that other people are seeing. So maybe you're getting a job across country and you're getting to move closer to friends and family, or maybe you are getting to move to a dream location. This is also perhaps you have told everyone and the universe that you want a particular type of house, or that you want a particular type of family situation going on at home, and things are happening in this way. So I think that this energy is lined up very nicely for you for some beneficial things happening over the next 2 weeks. When it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Uranus in your house of risky investments and creativity. And so some creative ideas may be coming in and you're kind of exploring that. You're also pulling money from Saturn in that house, which continues to tell you that the more you take care of your money, the more you are a good steward of it. The more you are a good steward of your money, by doing your budget, counting your dollars and maybe your pennies, and taking things and not spending willy-nilly and all of that, the more money you're going to receive. So it's very important where you look at where you're taking your responsibility for money. And if you are not, then to shift that energy, because that's going to bring you more wealth in general. When it comes to money from traditional investments like stocks and bonds, or money that's passively made like through affiliate marketing, or money from your own business, the sun is making a sesquiquadra to Uranus. That's an aspect that we don't talk about very often because it's a little challenging to get to work. But when it does work, it works really, really well. So that is that if there's something that you've been thinking about doing for a long time, maybe this is the time to do it. And that could be expanding your business in some way, going back after a client or customer you've had in the past, and seeing if if they want to buy from you again, or looking at maybe investments that you have and just adding to your portfolio. So there is an opportunity for more money to come into your account. It's a bit of a long shot, but it is one that if you feel safe doing it, it could really pay off. Okay, when it comes to money derived from career, there's no aspect going on between Pluto and Uranus, but Saturn is trining Mars, and these are the co-rulers. Additionally, Venus is in that house. It is making that in conjunct to Chiron. So all of this adds up to a potential of gaining more money if you will do some sort of healing, some sort of focus on, how to make your job better for you. Now, you might say, there's no way to make my job better for me, but you're there actually for some spiritual reason, some lesson you need to gain. And if you gain the lesson, then you either find that you can be happy in this job, or you find a better job. So if you feel stuck in a job and you're not making enough money, this is a time to look at how you can do this job better, or, to find the lesson of what is, why you're at this job. What is it teaching you? And through that, you can either gain a much better job that makes you more money, or you can gain more money in this particular job. And when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, Venus is making an opposition to Uranus. They're both in money houses. So this is some of the best energy for you to score in a risky investment. Now, I, of course, do want you to be careful. Risky investments are, by their name, risky. And so do be careful and not just throwing your money into something. You want to do the research. You want to know what you're doing. But if you are about to do some sort of long shot business, start your podcast, put your album out into the world, or you are negotiating maybe to buy a franchise or something like that, you have good energy this time. Okay, Aquarius natives, you guys are doing this full moon in your house of money. And so when we talk about letting go and letting the universe, what do we mean? And this is to first let go of money worries. And I'm not suggesting that you are letting go of worries where you haven't done everything that's your part of the bargain. And that means that you can't let go of money worries if you're not paying attention to your money in the first place. Letting go is the idea that you have a problem, you've been wrestling with it, you've been looking for solutions, and you've done everything that's possible on your side, and now it's up to something external, and that's where you let go. So because this moon is so late in the sign, it's probable that you've done this already. But it is a good time to ask yourself if there's anything more, just that one little last thing to do before you let this go. Now, if you are doing things like saying, I'm just not good at money, this is just hard for me, or things like that, the universe doesn't really take no for an answer on those sort of things. It would be you asking the universe, well, how can I learn this? How can I make this easier for me to learn? How can I understand this concept of the energy of money flowing to me? It's asking better questions. And that all comes from that sun up in Virgo in the 8th house, and that is resources from others. This is also a time to look less at the comparison that we are bombarded with in the media, because other people make it look so easy, that they have so much success and all of that. It's so funny because we can all get a little jealous at times. I do it. Everybody does it. We look at somebody and we say, oh my gosh, I look and say how many subscribers they have, etc. But, in truth, even though I've been doing this almost 8 years, which seems like that's a long time to be doing YouTube. So it has not been my main focus. I write a lot of books. I see a lot of clients. I do a lot of different things. And so that my focus wasn't entirely on YouTube. Maybe somebody else's was. I don't know their story. So if I am thinking that if I think that the world's unfair, it is, because it's supposed to be. It is that we're all on our individual journey. But if I'm thinking, I don't want to move forward on this because it's so easy for them, that's not why we're here. And so this is your opportunity to just ask different questions, and then the universe can bring you something. Now, all that was kind of the glass half full part of this. The glass half empty part of this, the good part of this, the unicorn in the pile of poop part of this is that with the moon there, you're right on the cusp of gaining something substantial. So this is not the time to give up. You've come all of this way towards the finish line, and the finish line is in sight. But this is the point where you're doing the burst of energy, and you have to then let go of the outcome. And that is, you just, give it to God and say, look, I've worked this hard on this. It's up to you. And if you want me to go a different direction, this is you talking to God, you say, show me that path. So that's where I want you to have the hope and excitement that you are very close to figuring this out. When it comes to relationships, the sun is making a sesquiquadrate to Uranus, which is not an aspect we talk about too often, though lately it's been popping up more and more. This is an aspect where something happens that is maybe out of the ordinary, or it's maybe more of a long shot, and that is, meeting somebody in an odd place, like you meet them at the post office or you meet them in the produce section when you weren't really expecting to meet somebody. Or this is because Mercury's retrograde, somebody comes back, but they've made a lot of changes in their life, or now they live locally, or now they're out of whatever situation they were in before. So it's possible that something's going to happen. A sesquiquadrate's not some energy that you want to count on because it's a bit of a long shot. It's a little bit like threading a needle, but kind of like threading a needle because you're throwing the string to the needle. Thread, not string, but so it is a bit of a long shot, but it is possible. It's probably not that big a long shot, but it's because it is an aspect. But it's something where, give yourself the idea that it could happen, but don't put all your hopes on that, because this says you should be working on other things, especially your finances this time, because that's where that full moon energy is. When it comes to home and family, you're pulling energy from that Venus, which is doing the inconjunct to Chiron. That is that everything can be quite happy and things can go well at home when you shift communication, when you shift how you're speaking about home and family or how you're speaking to people in the home. And so this is just, if you've noticed that if you use certain terms that other people get upset, maybe look for different words to use. Or if you notice that, they say things that get you upset every single time, see if you can, detach that button so that when they push your buttons, it doesn't set you off. So this is an opportunity to heal, an opportunity for things to be better because you're paying attention to how you're communicating. When it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Neptune, which is conjunct the moon, and they are in Pisces. And so this is to consider doing the spiritual side of that, and that is meditation, journaling, affirmations, hypnosis, doing one of those, what do they call it? Binaural, where you get one message in one ear and a different message in the other ear. And because it confuses your brain, it goes into your subconscious. And so, or things like biofeedback or any of these spiritual things. Feng Shui is very good during this time. So do that magical side where you are enlisting the help from the universe to bring in more money. When it comes to money from a traditional investment like a stock or bond or your own business or a family business, Mercury is making an inconjunct to that Neptune, and Mercury is going to go retrograde. So you do have opportunities to bring in more money, especially from a source that you have previously. So that is returning clients or customers or doing a similar marketing program than you've done before. That is getting more profits from an investment that you have gotten profits from before. So the profits look like they're flowing in. It's in inconjunct, so it takes a little effort, and there may be some compromises along the way. So maybe the returning customer doesn't pay as much, or maybe it's a smaller windfall, but it's coming in. When it comes to money derived from career, Jupiter is making a semi-sextile to Neptune. So if you're willing to do something that's slightly irritating, you can gain more money in your job. That is, you can certainly get a new job now because Venus is elevated in your chart, so you look really good to employers. But it's not that they're going to offer you the more money out of the gate. You're going to have to say, please, or this is why I deserve more money. And it's the same thing when you're talking to your boss. You're going to have to give some reasons. You don't have to do a lot. It's just a little bit. It's slightly irritating. Or they're going to say, oh yeah, but can you stay late on Fridays or something like that. There's just some little tiny thing that you have to do that's a little bit different and a little irritating, and then you gain. And when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, the things that are like the Bitcoins or the NFTs or even an ETF that's leveraged. And that would be an electronically traded fund that is, like one of those triple bull leveraged investments. Those I would consider risky investments because they're not super unusual, but they're enough where I had to actually take some time to explain that. So Mercury is doing an inconjunct to Neptune. So if you're willing to do the uncomfortable thing, and maybe that is to take the time to explain it to your family or to sit through your broker's explanation of what it is, to do the extra research, you could really gain. So this is some good energy. Now Mercury is retrograde, so you do best with investments that you have done before or that you are expecting to repeat. So it's less likely this is about buying a franchise. It could be you starting a franchise, and so that you're going to have many different places and you'll improve each time you do it, but less likely about buying a franchise because that's more of a one-shot deal. Okay, Pisces natives, this full moon is your full moon, and so you have the best opportunity to use this energy because you understand it. This is the energy of letting go and allowing the universe to take over, and this is something that you have been working on and learning your entire life, is what's in your control and what is outside of your control. And so this is your opportunity to really say very specifically, okay, universe, you take this part, I'm going to do this part over here. And so you divide up the duties and you start really co-creating with the universe. The other side of this is that Sun in Virgo in that house of partnerships. And that is, what very specifically do you want from a partner? And that can be a love relationship or a mentor or a collaborator or a business connection. So this is being very specific of, you're doing this and they're doing that, and then the remainder goes to the universe and the universe gets to take care of that. Now, if you are embroiled in some sort of partnership and you're struggling with it, this moon is just about to be void of course, and so you may already be saying to the universe, I can't do anything more. I have said that I want the relationship, I've been there for the person, and now it's just up to the universe to either pull you guys together or bring you somebody else. So to emphasize that, when we look at relationships for you, Mercury is making an inconjunct Neptune, your planet, the planet that rules Pisces. And so again, we're showing this need for some adjustments, but there's only so much adjustments that you can make before this is, deemed as outside of your ability to control it. So if somebody is really irritating you, it is really good to say to the universe, this is what they're doing that bugs me. And then you give that to the universe to see if they change. Now, also, there's a kind of mirror energy going on with any full moon, and that is that sometimes when somebody's doing something that really irritates us, if we look within ourselves and we find that we do that in some form, maybe a much milder form or something, but when we change, then suddenly they magically change. Now, that's where some of this inconjunct can come in from Mercury retrograde, where you are going back and doing this again. Maybe you did it once before and they magically changed and now they're slipping back into an old habit. See if you have slipped back into an old behavior yourself and you change, and then they magically get better. When it comes to home and family, it is ruled by that Mercury retrograde, and so there are some delays happening, maybe with a move, maybe getting some sort of refinancing done. If you're buying real estate, maybe there's some hiccups in that. Now, the plus side that I see is the North Node is down there, making that lovely trine to Mars in your house of resources. So I do think that through a phone call or two, or a fax they didn't get or something, you can get all of this going. And it does show that it is in line with your life path. That's all wonderful. So this is more about just being patient, again, releasing what you cannot control to the universe, but making sure that you do the stuff that is in your control. And that is if somebody needs a piece of paper again, which is so common during Mercury retrograde, that somebody loses a piece of information or they didn't get a fax or they didn't get an email, that's where you say, okay, let me get that done, and then you release the rest of the process to the universe. When it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Mars in your house of resources, that one that's making the trine to your life path. So that is fantastic energy. This says that you might have amazing ideas over the course of the next 2 weeks for future businesses or future sources of income. So you want to make sure that you write those down. You also may get somebody who comes into your life who gives you an idea that you just feel in your gut is the thing that's going to work. And so the universe could bring you the help you need because it's in your house of resources, or the funding you need, or the support you need. So you have really good energy for gaining more money during this period. Now, when it comes to money that comes from a business or a family business or a passive income source that's more traditional, like a stock, bond, dividends and things like that, even though that Venus is not making an aspect to Mars, they are speaking to each other in a unique way because Mars is in Libra and Libra is ruled by Venus, and Venus is in Scorpio and Scorpio is ruled by Mars, or co-ruled by Mars. And so it's like two people who speak the same language, but they're not quite at a distance where they can have an easy conversation. And so you see somebody, one of your kinfolks, they're clear across the room. You can mouth a few words to them. Maybe they get it, maybe they don't. So this is that there is an opportunity. It's not necessarily coming quite together yet, but it's super close. It probably will come together within the next period or the period after that. So we might see something shift with the new moon that's in a couple weeks. This, though, it's worth pursuing because there is some communication going, because there is a shared language happening between this investment that we're talking about and your bank account. Now, when it comes to money from your career, you're doing an excellent aspect because Mars is making a trine to Saturn. And Mars is in a money house. So this is an excellent time to ask for a raise. Now, Saturn is going through your hidden house, which does mean that you have to remind your boss that you do work there. So make sure that when you are submitting any sort of paperwork or things, that your name is on the projects that you've finished, the work that you're doing. Put it somewhere on your reports, put it somewhere on your PowerPoint slides so that people do remember your name. But you are doing some great energy for negotiating for more money, either at your current job or at a new job. And when it comes to risky investments, and these would be things like Bitcoin or NFTs or things that are highly leveraged or take a lot of money to get started, the moon is making an out of sign opposition with Mars. I know that was a mouthful. I barely got it out. So that means that money can come to you, but it's not so obvious. And so this would be, maybe you think you're making a real estate deal, but you're only getting a finder's fee. But the finder's fee is still substantial enough to make you feel like, okay, I got something. Or you have something else that it doesn't seem to be coming so directly, or it's coming from some sort of surprising source, but it could come to you. So this is another of these aspects that you're doing where you do show some great possibilities. You do want to work at this, put the energy in. It's also possible because of the Mercury retrograde. This is something that fell through before, but now you can get it signed. So I like this energy. Yes, it's a little bit obscured because it's out of sign, but if you focus on it, and again, like going quiet, meditating, journaling, getting messages from the universe, that's something that you have a particular talent in doing because you are Pisces or Pisces rising. So getting those messages from the universe can show you the way to get this thing from this more unusual source. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe and stay tuned because LaRue wants to say hi.